And welcome to The Real Deal. I am your host, Kim Hollingshead. Thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday evening. We're here every single Saturday from 9 to 10 p.m., and you're listening to 99.7 Super Talk on WTN right here in Nashville, Tennessee. So grateful for my amazing listeners. On The Real Deal, we talk about all things real estate, mortgage, title insurance, real estate law, and business. We like to touch on life and just everything in general. And, today's episode is no different. We have been in this series now in the entire month of January called our #goal series. These are episodes that are completely devoted to helping you, reach your goals for 2026. Hopefully, invest in a little real estate, look at buying a house, taking some really big moves to improve your financial situation this year. And on the last episode, we talked about how you really, in order to reach your goals, you have to set standards. And it's a combination of your standards meets your identity. And that's how these goals are reached. I use the example of saying, hey, you've got 10 pounds to lose, then you want to become a person who eats healthier, who works out, who gets up earlier. That's who you are as a person. And then you set the standards of I will only eat so many calories, or I do not drink alcohol. And these standards plus the identity help you reach your goal. Now, in today's episode, we're going to continue on with this. And look, I do own a real estate law firm. I am blessed to have an amazing title company, and I dabble in a little bit of land development here and there. I serve on the board of the housing fund, and I have amazing relationships with my friends and my family. My core group of friends, we have been friends for over 20 years, and these are relationships that I cherish and I nurture. They are so important to me. And look, a lot of people, I hear it kind of all the time where people are like, oh my gosh, how do you juggle it all? Because it kind of sounds like you're doing a radio show and you got all this stuff happening. How do you do it? And I'm like, well, it's time management, guys. It's time management. Look, I am just like every other person out there. I wake up in the morning and immediately my phone starts buzzing. Okay. I'm not perfect by any means. Like if you took a look at my phone, I probably have 200 unread text messages at any given moment. And the reason is because I filter my messages and I'm really intentional about the amount of time that I devote to my text messaging. And I will show you in today's episode why that's okay that I have 200 unread text messages. It's because I'm just like you guys. I wake up, my phone's buzzing. I've got social media posts that I need to get up. I've got these urgent requests from all of my clients. I have real estate clients who it does not matter what it is, big or small, if it's closing today or if it's closing in 3 weeks from now. Every single thing is a fire. I have to put it out. It's an urgent thing. And if I don't get to them right away, I'm the worst title company ever. I know you guys identify with that in your work. I know that. And before I became an attorney, for many years, I put myself through college and through law school doing a myriad of many, many different kinds of jobs. And one of them was that I waited tables. And I get it, like what it feels like to be in the weeds and like you cannot catch up. I still sometimes have dreams that I am waiting tables and I'm in the weeds waiting tables. And it's like, the people, they need drinks and this table needs to get a side of ranch. And, what do you do first? Right. And you can't do anything right. And people, they don't care that you're busy. They're trying to have a wonderful experience. And yeah, that's just one example of how it doesn't matter what field of work that you're in. It's always like this, right? We have invitations that we receive from people. Can you have lunch? Can you meet for drinks? My employees call me kind of constantly with questions. And of course, it may not feel like the most important question in the world for me, but it's like I tell everyone, my employees are my number one customer, you guys. Like they are the ones that I get up every morning and I serve. I have accounting, I have bill pay, I've got so many things with my church and my friends and someone's having a birthday. And so And you guys, like, I don't have children. If I was a mom, I can't even imagine just the number of tasks and the amount of pressure that is on a mom or a dad in today's world. It is outrageous. But it doesn't matter what you do for a living. Everyone can identify with this, right? We all have unread emails. We all have people tugging on our shirts all day long who need something from us. And it can feel really paralyzing for many people. They say, I don't have the capacity, in order to manage all of this. And we see this huge mental health crisis right now. And I think one of the reasons is because people are under a tremendous amount of pressure from just the amount of access that people have to us and how easy it is. And then, yes, this culture of, well, I texted you, why didn't you text me back right away? And, text messages feel very, very urgent and we need to get to them. So, hopefully by the end of today's episode, I can set you guys free in some small way. If I did, you guys, please give me a call and let me know if anybody has any success stories from what I'm going to share with you guys on today's episode. It is so powerful. There has never been a person that I have shared any of this with who has not called me later and said, or has not mentioned to me and said, Kim, that was some of the greatest stuff I ever heard, and it totally helped me in my life. So, I did not originate this content. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. So, which is going to go back to, let's take it back in history. And this is how we're going to talk about it. Let's go back in history and imagine, you're President Eisenhower and, it's World War II. This is before you've become the president and you're managing this war and you've got, everything. Imagine if you're overseeing an entire campaign of war, how urgent every single thing. It is literally life or death. Almost everything that you do every single day is going to impact someone in that way. And he could not afford to become paralyzed, right? So what he did is he actually came up with something. It's called the Eisenhower Matrix. It is attributed to him. It is an invention of President Eisenhower's. And it goes like this. Every single thing in our lives can be divided into one of 4 different categories, 4 quadrants. Imagine a square, and inside of that square are 4 smaller squares, okay? You got box 1, box 2, box 3, and box 4. And in the first box, we've got things that are urgent and important. In box 2, we've got not urgent and important. In box 3, we've got urgent and unimportant. And in the 4th box, we've got not urgent and unimportant. Okay. So everything we do goes into one of these 4 boxes. So, well, what's urgent and important, Kim? Well, things that are urgent and important are things that are crisis, that are deadlines. These are problems. They require your immediate attention. I want you to think of things like medical problems, a broken water pipe, a project, a deadline that is due today. These are the things that are urgent and they are important. The things that are not urgent and yet still important are things like strategic planning, relationship building, your health, long-term goals like exercise. These are the things that you do to prevent problems that will become urgent and important problems for you to solve in the future. These are the long-term goals that we're talking about, your hashtag goals for 2026. This is where they go. Number 3, urgent and unimportant things. These are things that feel really urgent, but they're actually not important. So urgent, like a text message, like a ding from social media, these are things that can be delegated. These are tasks that take up a lot of your time. And you'll stop what you're doing just to rush to go check your phone because you've heard a ding. And then you check your phone and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a text message from some telemarketer or something, or somebody's texting me about something that's going to occur in a month from now. That is not urgent. Okay. Now, the last quadrant are things that are not urgent and not important. Things like you want to eliminate these things out of your life as much as possible. Doom scrolling is a great example of things that we do that's not urgent, it's not important. Now, this idea was presented really to the public by a man named Stephen Covey. And Stephen wrote this book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And anyone who is anyone in business or entrepreneurship has definitely read this book. So I'm sure that you remember the concept. And what Stephen Covey said was, you got to put the first things first, okay? So, and I think he actually wrote a book later on called First Things First, if I remember correctly. And what he's saying is he wants us to focus on the things that are actually important in our lives, not just the things that feel really urgent. Why does this happen? Urgent and important means that that urgency and importance are not the same thing. But why is it that we naturally do this? Why do we just say, oh my gosh, it feels really urgent, therefore it must be important? And this is a natural phenomenon, and you guys will absolutely recognize this in your own lives. Let's say that you're sitting in a restaurant and you're eating this amazing meal, you're having a great time, and you run out of Coca-Cola, okay? And you say to your waiter comes around, he's like, hey, is everything looking good here? And you go, yeah, I would just love another Coke when you have a moment. And he's like, okay, great. And you see him just sort of slowly strolling away from the table. And he just sort of like meanders over to the bar, and he says like a little something to the bartender. Then like 60 seconds later, you like look over and he's like keying something into this like machine where it looks like he's maybe checking something or like entering someone else's order. He stops, he says something to another waiter, and you're sitting there trying to eat your food and you can't help it. Just like out of the corner of your eye, you keep seeing him and he is not getting your Coca-Cola. All right. So then finally he gets your Coca-Cola. He brings it over to the table and he hands it over, and he kind of has this attitude like, you're welcome. Okay. And is that not the most annoying thing? You're like, dude, I'm sitting here trying to eat my food. I'm so thirsty. Clearly, I drank an entire Coke and I'm asking for another one. I am so thirsty. Why would you make me wait before you like did all of these other things that were more important? And, to you in the moment is you like talk to this guy and you key something in, and why didn't you just walk over, get the Coke and bring it back to me? And this is it, you guys. It's called speed to action. And we have a natural inclination as human beings to make speed, urgency, synonymous with importance. If you don't act fast enough for us, then we interpret that naturally as us not being important to you. This goes back to our very, very early childhood. We're programmed this way from the time that we're babies and the time we're like little toddlers. And it's like, if you really stop and think about it, you know that your baby, like when they are hungry right this minute. They are not hungry later, right? And they will feel and internalize these feelings of unimportance because you're not taking care of them fast enough. So, and every mother out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. And this is just a natural human feeling. So when we come back from the break, guys, if you're still here with me, don't miss this next part. This is when we're really starting to get into it. Why is the Eisenhower Matrix so powerful and how it's really going to help us in 2026 reach our goals. Guys, you're listening to The Real Deal on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Real Deal with Kim Hollingshead. I am your host, Kim. You're listening to WTN Super Talk 99. Welcome to The Real Deal. I am your host, Kim Hollingshead, and you are listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Guys, today on the episode, we are talking about urgency and importance and how to categorize the things that we have to do every single day into the Eisenhower Matrix. If you missed it at the top of the show, go back and catch me on Spotify, YouTube, all the social media platforms. You can give me a call. It is 615-549-1933. And, we're talking about how AI-powered fraud has really made it so hard, especially because fraud is on the rise just sort of in general. Technology has always made it easier to commit fraud. But now with the AI deep fakes, you're deep faking IDs. They are deep faking entire videos of people so that they're using remote online notarization actually in order to deep fake an entire video closing. It's wild, you guys. So title companies have really started to dig in to protect their clients because we have to make sure that through due diligence and the way that we work, that we are your shield against fraud. Can we prevent it all? No, we can't. And can we do it all on our own? No, we can't. But I want you to take these concepts and think about them and see how you can apply them to your own business. Now, what are some of the things that we're doing? We're doing biometric identification. We're trying to test the aliveness of our clients. When you do a closing with my title company, you will not sit down with somebody and we will not do a remote closing without at least 2 forms of ID, and we talk to every single person that we're doing a closing for on the telephone. If you think you're going to be a diva and you're going to get a closing with my office and not have to answer the phone and talk to anybody, that all you're ever going to do is text message, that is not going to happen with us. The other thing is that we will not use Ron. We have moved away from Ron. I understand everyone feels like it is the most convenient thing in the entire world. But guess what? For us, urgency and speed is not always the most important thing. What's more important is that we're protecting you, your property, your finances. Of course, we use multi-factor authentication in all of our emails. We actually use encrypted portals. And we use, like for instance, you have to go through an encrypted portal in order to even just download our wiring instructions. But the other thing that we do is we're always cross-referencing. So we have these forms that we like for our clients to complete. We send them this intake form, and then they give us their information. They download stuff in the form. They have to use, check with their email address and everything. And then we actually cross-reference that information from what we see in the MLS and what we see online. You have to can have an entire title examination. I don't care if you're buying with cash or you're buying with a loan. You're going to have an entire title examination, and you're going to buy the title insurance policy because y'all listen, cash buyers are the number one target for fraud in any real estate industry across the board. So when we take these things like the multi-factor authentications and the secure portals and things like that, one of that I know everybody can take that back to their business, right? One of the things that you can do if you're buying a house or if you're doing a refinance is you want to make sure that you kind of have a checklist of things that you're following. And I want you to really do this across the board in every industry. Do not text your information to anyone. Do not email your information to anyone. If they call you over the phone, they are calling you and asking you to verify with them. They don't need a verification. They're the ones that are calling you. Okay, you verify them. That's the way that it works. Now, you want to write down some contacts who are going to be considered your, quote, safe contacts, and that's going to be your realtor, your loan officer, your title company. Guys, this is one of the reasons why it's so important that you work with a local loan officer, because this person is taking all of your financial information to qualify you for a loan. Don't you want to be able to sit down face to face with that person and have a cup of coffee with them and just make sure that they're a real person? Yes, I highly recommend that your banker, your loan officer, your realtor, that they be somebody that you can sit down with. I understand even if you're face to face or you're buying property that is out of state, almost all lenders and loan officers can lend in all 50 states. Work with somebody who can and sit down and do the application with them face to face so that you know who's taking your information. This is to prevent online fraud. Tip number 2 is, listen to your phone call. Try to become an expert at spotting AI fraud. Listen for the robot voice. If you get a phone call from someone and they're pretending to be a real person, I am adamant that AI should be disclosed. If you are using AI video, AI voice, AI text, if you're using an AI agent to do any work in your business, you should be disclosing that to all of your clients, and they should have to opt in to using AI. I'm really adamant about this. I hope that our legislators in Tennessee and that are in Congress will listen to me when I say it is not okay that anybody is allowed to copy another person's voice, their likeness, their image. That is not okay. we should not only for the celebrities, like poor Taylor Swift has been used terribly to commit horrible fraud, but just for people like me and you, we're all on social media. Everybody has a photo or a video out there nowadays, and it is so easy for them to fake use, AI voice and text. And I think it should also have, we should have legislation out there that requires companies to disclose when AI is being used and to actually ask for an opt-in process for that service. Check for weird pronunciations of words. Check for voice inflection. Ask the person who's calling you, and asking you for information, ask them, to identify in some other ways that cannot be, just checked by some random robot. It's getting to be so good that you guys are not going to be able to spot AI over the phone. So you're going to have to figure out ways to test the caller. Somebody calls you and they pretend like they are your real estate agent. Do not hesitate, or they pretend like they're your banker. Don't hesitate for a second to ask that person, oh, really, what did we discuss the last time that we had lunch? What was the joke that I told the last time that we had lunch? I just want to verify that you are who you say you are, because you're asking me for personal confidential information on this phone call. I don't care. I'll do it in a minute. And I want to empower all of my listeners to do the same. Do not feel like somebody can call you or text you and that they are just entitled to the information that they're asking for over the phone, even if you're in a real estate transaction or any kind of a banking transaction, especially somebody calling and pretending like they're your financial advisor, they're your accountant. You guys be super, super careful who you give information to. And the other thing is to make sure that, try to figure out a way to take things off of the internet and off text messaging. And that means interacting with an actual human being to make sure that you are, checking for fraud. The other thing is this, guys, beware of urgency. Beware of urgency. If there's nothing else that you took away from this phone call about, or this radio episode about, please beware of urgency, because a true professional is never going to set you a deadline like, well, you have to wire me the $300,000 within an hour. And if you don't do it within an hour, I'm going to cancel this contract. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. And if they do, that's not somebody that you want to work with. And always ask for the actual confirmations to be emailed to you as well. And I mean like wire confirmations, receipts, all of that. So guys, when we come back from the break, we're going to touch base on this final topic. And that is going to be about how demanding urgency can really cost you a lot of money in your real estate business. And especially if you're an investor, these are some things that you want to look out for. You're listening to The Real Deal on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm your host, Kim Hollingshead. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to The Real Deal. I am your host, Kim Hollingshead. You guys are listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for joining me every single Saturday so that we can have these wild and crazy conversations. I mean, I'm telling you what, we're sitting here at the top of the show talking about urgency versus importance and how to categorize the things that we do every single day to help us reach our goals. That the things that are the most important to us in our day-to-day life is not always going to be the most urgent. Somebody sending you a text message to ask you about supper on a Saturday night is not going to be the most, important thing that you have to do right in that moment. Sometimes it is more important for you to just take the moment to yourself and say a prayer, read your Bible, read a chapter in a book, or go on a walk, maybe sit down and do some strategic planning and focus on your side hustle, or take the time that you need to look into becoming a homeowner, to invest your money, to pay the bills on time. The things that are urgent are not always the most important. And the things that are most important are sometimes the most urgent if it's like an emergency situation. And for us, we always have to have that discernment and that wisdom to know the difference between the two. Because when we don't always understand this is how we get caught up in things like fraud. Because people come at us with these urgent requests. You have to stop what you're doing right now and do this. And it also distracts us in major important ways where we're not able to reach our long-term goals because we're just caught up doing busy work all day, every day. And then also there's the thing of the dopamine depletion where we just sit down and we do things that are neither important or they're not urgent or important. They're just like mindless things like watching TV, playing video games, doom scrolling on social media. Are there times when going on social media are important? Yes, because maintaining our relationships with our friends and our family, that is incredibly important. Not always urgent, but very important in our lives. So we do want to devote our time and attention to those things. But when we fall into the trap of feeling like it's not important if it's not urgent, that's how we have lives that are out of control, okay? Because we don't take the time that we need to sit down and to do the prevention. We don't look at where the risks are in our lives and mitigate those risks. We don't take the time to review the insurance policy or, to sit down and look at our bank account to make sure that the bills got paid. And then later on, we come back and we're like, oh my gosh, what in the world? I didn't know that I didn't pay that bill for 6 months. And now it's become an urgent and an important matter that we have to deal with right then and there, right? We want to try to eliminate both categories from our lives. Things that are urgent and important, we want to try to minimize that as much as possible because it's almost always an emergency problem, okay? And the things that are not important and not urgent that pull our attention away and they just drain our dopamine, we also want to eliminate those things. We really want to have things in our lives that are, they're urgent, but maybe not as important, or things that are, those things like grocery shopping and doing the yard work, these things we can delegate as much as possible. Delegate it if you can. But the things that are important and not urgent, that's where the majority of our creativity, our strategic planning, this is how we reach the goals that are most important in our lives. And it makes the biggest difference to our lives. These are things like our side hustles, like our real estate business, our investments. And that's where we want to pour our time and our energy. And the other second thing is that if we don't understand the difference between things that are urgent, between urgency and importance, that's how we get nabbed up into things like fraud. Because almost always, fraudsters will make a sense of urgency. I have no problem. I had a phone call the other day from somebody from, I think it was Westlaw, because I'm a real estate attorney. And I usually use LexisNexis to do all of my research. And that's kind of like the online platform that attorneys use to like search for cases and things like the statutes and stuff like that. And so I'm set up with LexisNexis. And this person called me the other day and they just said they were from Westlaw. And they were trying to sell me on this incredible opportunity over the phone. And, if I didn't take advantage of it right then and there, I was going to lose the opportunity. And I want to empower everybody out there by I have no problem saying this. And I hope that you guys pick up on this too. This is something that really set a lot of my friends and my clients free. I'll just say to someone, I don't like making decisions very quickly. I like to take my time to make my decisions. I'm very slow at making decisions, and sometimes I change my mind. And that simple statement was enough to get that person to not ask me to make a decision on the spot. They said, okay, well, what can I do? And I said, well, if you would like to email me some information, I will find some time in my schedule over the next couple of weeks to review it. And then I will contact you and let you know my decision either way. Will that work for you? And they said, sure. Now, the offer did not disappear. The offer was still there. And guess what? A week later, I reviewed it, got back to them, decided it wasn't for me. But that's okay. Because if it was for me, I'm sure that offer was still there. If I find myself feeling like there's this urgency put on me to hurry up and make a decision about something, I will almost always say no, because I don't think that most professionals and most things in life should be set up that way. There are times, though, when something's been put off long enough that it becomes urgent. Again, wisdom, discernment, okay? But for the most part, we try to do as much planning as we can to avoid that. When you fall into the trap of having this urgency about everything that you're doing, there is a huge, steep cost to that. And for a lot of real estate investors, sometimes that comes in the cost of the money that you need in order to invest in a project. On next week's episode, we're going to talk about this because I find real estate investors who, maybe they have like this urgency, rush. I have to be able to build this, buy this house before it goes into foreclosure. Hurry up and take advantage of this opportunity. Sometimes there is an actual real urgency to it, and sometimes it's a false urgency. It doesn't really exist. So on next week's episode, we're going to talk about the cost of money and how having this urgency can actually impact your cost of money just in such a great deal. Guys, I hope that you find value in what we discuss here on The Real Deal. Thank you so much for joining me every single Saturday from 9 to 10 p.m. I can't tell you enough how much doing the show means to me, my listening audience. You guys, I thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Thank you.